beginning of the call, you certainly can catch up with through the recording. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Bill Mulcahy, Vice President of AdsNext. Our topic today is how to handle callers with insurance questions. The host of this call is Larry Gazzardo. If you did not have the opportunity to listen to our last webinar, Larry is a dental practice management consultant with experience in developing training programs, business process systems, and leadership development. About 2 months ago, Larry hosted a webinar for us about best practices for handling incoming phone calls. And this session, that session was so well received that we asked him to come back to share some more of his expertise. One thing all of our dentists have in common is they face insurance questions every day. As part of our program, we continuously review this with you guys, but we thought it would be very beneficial to have Larry come in today and just share some of his expertise with us and talk about how he trains a lot of his customers to best handle these questions. So without further delay, I'll hand this over to Larry.
Hey, thanks, Bill. When you asked me to conduct a second webinar for everybody, I didn't realize that the ante was going to be raised and the questions were going to be harder. But this is a good one because I think every single office today runs into this question as to whether you accept insurance or not. And regardless if you participate or not, you probably don't participate with every plan that's out there. So we have to be prepared to answer this question because so many people have insurance today and they're all the same with the regard that they expect their insurance to cover everything. And it's a huge disappointment for them when they find out that it's not the way that it seems. You know, often the insurance companies will state that we cover something at 100%. So you can imagine what a disappointment it is for folks to find out that that just isn't the case. So the question for all of us is, how do we answer these questions? How do we work with these patients so that even though they may be dissatisfied with the outcome, they're never dissatisfied with us? Because we want to be able to communicate with people who call us on the telephone in a way that gets them to feel like, hey, this person's on my side, even though they may not be on my list. And I feel like I can work with them. And because the fact that they feel like they can work with you, I want you to see that they may become flexible and accept what their insurance will cover, or maybe even better, step outside of what their insurance will cover and work with you anyway. So I want you to remember that when you're working with people, there's a mindset that has to be developed. I know for myself, when I'm talking with individuals, and those who know me will agree that this is true, I am willing to talk to anyone who wants to talk to me. I just developed that mindset that it's a great way to network and it's a great way to convert people to your way of thinking if you can engage them in a conversation. I've also developed the mindset for folks who call you on the phone that they actually want to schedule an appointment when they call. And so I want you to keep that mindset, and I want you to keep that thought that our key role here, whenever somebody calls us on the telephone, regardless of what they ask us, should be that we schedule an appointment with them. Now, we want them to feel good about the appointment, and then we want them to feel good about us. I know that if there isn't the proper preparation, that we can unintentionally turn the patient off, particularly when it comes to dealing with insurance questions, because face it, most of the questions that people are going to ask, it's not so much that you can't answer, but you're not going to be able to give them the answer that they want, because insurance doesn't cover everything. We know that there's lots of restrictions, we know there's lots of limitations, we know that there's waiting periods and exclusions, and these are very difficult things for patients to understand. And so remember, we don't want them to take it out on the messenger, you and me. We want them to take it out on the insurance company. And so we want them to see that you can work with us, and that it would be easy to work with us. So we don't want to unintentionally turn them off by giving them a negative answer when we really want them to schedule an appointment. So let's talk about keeping this from happening. And we're not going to, again, create the wheel here. What I'm going to present to you is information that I have been using for years and have had quite a good success with it in other practices. So it's what I call the best practices that I see in use in other offices. If it works for them, I know that it will work for you. I say all of this to you because I want you to be able to make it your own. I say things very, very simply because I know if it's complicated, you won't remember it or you won't repeat it. But I want you to make this your own. I want you to say it your way. But I think you'll see a theme in everything that I will say to a patient. And I think you'll see that you're right. You've got to be prepared to be able to talk to patients. Otherwise, they're going to throw us off. And we don't want to do that. We know that when you're dealing with patients, their decisions are based on a lot on emotion and not so much on logic. And we like to say a lot of logical things like, you know, the contract that you have between your insurance carrier is with you and them and not with us, and we're not a party to it. But you can see how that can immediately be a negative comment to most patients. The truth is, when we're communicating with a patient on the phone, we want to develop that customer service personality. And what I mean by that is we want to say things in a way so that people could like us. We want to say things in a way so that people could feel like, hey, I could work with you. And whether we like this or not, there's no logic in this. It's all emotion. People are going to decide whether they like you or not by how they feel about talking with you and what it's like to have a conversation with you. So along with your mindset that I'm going to talk with you, I also have to develop my customer service personality, because when I'm talking to them on the phone, all I have is that personality. I don't want you to have to think that you need to be somebody different, and I certainly don't want you to think that you have to memorize a script. Matter of fact, I wouldn't want you to do that, because there's nobody who reads from a script unless you're a trained actor or actress that actually sounds sincere. Matter of fact, it's physiologically impossible for you to sound like yourself when you're reading from a script. Now, I'm going to give you some outlines and I'm going to give you some catchphrases that you can say, but my intention here for everybody is that you really read what I'm saying and you make it your own. You know, your words and the way that you sound on the phone or in real life is done by the way that air comes through your vocal cords. And the words that you speak, you say all the time, so your vocal cords produce a certain sound. You sound like you. But you probably notice that any time you've ever had to read something out loud, maybe you've had to read a book or recite a poem or read a greeting card or something like that, all of a sudden you don't sound the same. You don't sound like the same person. And the reason why you don't sound like the same person is because physiologically you're speaking different words, and the air that's coming through your vocal cords doesn't come through the same way. So anytime you have to say words that are not your own, as much as we might like to think otherwise, you are not going to fool somebody. The only individuals who are able to do that are people who are highly trained. When I think of somebody like that, I think of Meryl Streep, the actress. She wins Academy Awards. It's because when she plays another character, she fools us into thinking she actually is that individual. And if anyone is familiar with Meryl Streep, you'll recognize that, you know what? She does it because she changes her tone of voice. She changes her tone of voice so effectively that we actually believe she's the character that she's portraying. You and I, we don't have that kind of training. And I put myself in that group. I try to stay true to my own way of speaking because that's when I sound the most sincere. That's when I sound the most genuine. And I know when I'm that way, people are going to pay attention to me. So every one of us have called customer service, and we knew very, very quickly from the start of that phone call, we were talking to the wrong person. And you and I both know that the only thing we had to go by was their tone of voice. When that tone doesn't come across correctly, sincerely, genuinely, we lose interest very, very quickly. Many times some of us will hang up the phone. So we don't want to have that happen to us. You develop a customer service personality, and part of that is knowing what you want to say and how you want to say it. Unfortunately for us, we only have our tone of voice. And so we want to be able to use that to our advantage. So I'll tell you that effective communication requires a mixture of both emotion and logic, but it's combined with preparation. This we cannot wing it. You know, people throw us off with their questions, and so we want to be able to answer them very, very effectively. I'll say to you that trust naturally occurs once the caller feels they've been heard and understood. When we like who we're talking to, we like talking to them. Our first objective is to make sure that the patient feels good about talking to you. Because if they're not going to feel good about talking to you, it doesn't make a difference what you say, because they won't agree to it. When people don't like the way they feel, they immediately go into resistance. So we have to make sure that we want patients to feel good about what we're saying to them. Listening must occur before the patient can understand you. And I think to everyone who's listening this afternoon, that makes perfect sense. If we can't get them to listen to us, there's no way that they could ever understand us, regardless of what we say. So we have to remember that our tone is what we can use to project our attitude. Your attitude is what appeals to an individual's emotion. If we perceive that your attitude is negative, I can already tell you, you're not going to listen to that person. Because if the tone that is projected is positive, you're going to pay attention and you're going to be eager. So if you want somebody to listen to you, use your tone of voice to project a positive emotion. And then that way they will pay attention to you. And that's all we have. You see, the words that we use, and today there's a lot of focus on words, and words are important because what we say to a patient does have to make sense, and it has to be in order, and it has to be concise, so they can follow it. But the words that we use is actually the technique that we have. Technique in words appeals to logic. Logic promotes understanding. And so I think you might even be sitting there just shaking your head. You're right. I have to feel like this person has a good attitude, is excited about speaking to us, wants to share their information, and what they say has to be familiar to me. It can't be big words that I don't understand. It can't be jargon. It has to be in lay people's terms. And so if you want people to listen to you, you control your tone of voice. If you want them to understand you, you pay attention to your words. So you choose your words very, very carefully. And of course, you say them in a particular order so that it makes sense to the patient. So emotion plays a big part in what you're trying to accomplish in dealing with patients. So what I'll say to you is that the words that you use and the tone that you use is actually the technique and attitude in action. It's a combination of both together. It can't be just words, and it can't be just attitude. I wish people made these decisions about whether they're going to come to your office or not based on any kind of logic, but the reality is they don't. They use emotion. It's really whether they like you or not. And so that's why I go back to our first objective is to get them to want to like you so that they'll want to schedule an appointment and be in a conversation with you. That's extremely important. So remember, when they call and they ask that question, do you take my insurance? We've got to be prepared for that. And I'll give you a 5-step process that you can follow, and you can follow it every single time, and it will help you every single time. Now, we are talking about people who want to know if you take insurance or not. And I will tell you right now, right at the get-go, before we even really get started here, that there is a real good chance that you might find out later in the call that we're not going to be able to help this patient. And I'll admit that does happen from time to time. However, it doesn't happen enough. It doesn't happen often enough that I don't think it's worth taking the risk to have a conversation with the patient, because I think there's a greater chance the patient will make it work if they like us. So if I'm making any sense, I don't want you to worry so much about what you're going to say as worry how you're going to say it. Because a person who likes who they're talking to is not resistant, and they become very flexible. So it is true that we may find that we can't help this patient, but I think it's worth taking the risk. And I don't want you guys to cut yourself off short right in the beginning of the call by sounding too negative. I want you to sound very, very positive, because there's a real good chance they'll want to step outside what their insurance covers, or they'll listen to you about how they actually could use their insurance in your office. You see, the patient can't like us if we don't create the opportunity to be liked. This is something that we create. This is something that we do. Patients want to like us, but they never think they have to ask, hey, do you think I'm going to like you? They don't do that, but they want to. And so we create the opportunity to be liked, and we can't let it slip away. The reason why I'm being so cautious about this is because I know when patients call, they bombard us with questions. And many times their questions don't even make any sense. Like, they'll start with, do you take my insurance? Or they'll want to know if you waive copays or if you open on Sunday. And I know that we think we just have to be polite and have to answer their questions. And what I'm going to say to you is, when we start answering questions, that call is going to slip away from us, because we'll say yes, yes, no, no, yep, we have that, yes, we could. They're going to kind of get all their answers, and they're going to say, well, thanks for answering my questions. I'll call you if I'd like to make an appointment, and they're going to hang up the phone. And I want you to hold the thought here, because you're going to end up on the other end of the line feeling like, well, hey, you might have liked us if you would have given me the chance to talk. And that's that thought I want you to hang on to, that you might have liked us. Matter of fact, I know you would have liked us if you would have given me the chance. And so I want you to see that they won't give you, or they don't give you the chance. They don't think they have to. We're the professionals here. We're the ones who have to create the opportunity for the chance to occur. So we kind of listen to what they're saying, but we take it with a grain of salt, and we answer the questions when we know that we need to. So I always recommend that if somebody calls, in particular if they're asking that question, you know, do you take insurance? Start off with yes. Make it positive. Yes, your insurance company works with us as a non-participating provider. Many of our patients who have the same plan come to our office, so we know there's an out-of-network benefit. They really like us, and I know you will too. Sounds like you haven't been here before. What I want you to hear is that I'm making a statement, and I'm following up with a question. And I'm following up with a question because that now engages the patient in a conversation with me. And so I know what they're going to say. They're going to say, yeah, I'm sorry, no, I've never been there before. I'm looking for a doctor who takes my insurance. And so the first step here is, we're glad you called. You want to turn this around. You don't want to go down a road that you might not be able to come back from. You know, we're going to address their insurance questions, and we're going to find out exactly what kind of plan they have, and we're going to find out how we're going to be able to help them. But you know what? That won't make any difference if the patient doesn't like who we are and doesn't like what they're hearing on the phone. They'll just hang up and say, thank you, goodbye. So your first step is always to start with, hey, we're really glad that you called. We like working with new patients. So you want to use an appropriate greeting. I think it's worth mentioning here, when you pick up the phone, people are in a rush. Many times they're in their car. Sometimes they're on a break. I feel like an appropriate greeting is a short one. You know, that way you don't sound monotonous from having to recite a really long greeting, and you won't get cut off, and patients can easily hear what you have to say. So an appropriate greeting is also friendly, because when it's short, it sounds nice. Like I say, some greetings I hear are so long. Oh, thanks for calling our office. It's a wonderful day. How can we give you the best smile in the world? My name is Larry. How can I help you? Well, you know what? The person who's hearing you is probably already worn out. Now, I know there's a lot of people who may beg to differ with me. I'm sharing with you my experience. I have had the benefit of auditing many phone calls, too many to recall. I'll say in the hundreds. And one of the common things that I hear going on is when that greeting gets too long, it shows up in your tone of voice, and many times the patient cuts you off because they kind of think you're finished because you've gone on for too long. So I think it's very, very important that you make the greeting friendly by keeping it short and by using your name last. It's very common if people say, this is Larry, how could I help you? The problem with that is people tend to remember the last thing they heard and they forget who you are. So what they heard was you, and they're trying to figure out who you are, you. So a friendly greeting is when they know who they talk to. I like them short. Thanks for calling our office. How can I help you? This is Larry. That's the way that I recommend that you do it. And then, of course, you want to get the caller's name, because when you can use their name throughout the conversation, it sounds friendly to them. Hey, and you know what? Don't take my word for it. When you're out in public and you see somebody's wearing a name badge, say their name and notice how their body language changes and how their attitude towards you changes. Everybody likes to be called by their name. Everybody likes that. So I like the phrase, once again, I'm Larry. Please tell me your name. And then that way you can jot it down. You want to create a connection to begin to develop rapport. I'm talking about professional rapport. And what I mean by professional rapport is the relationship that we have to develop with one another so that we can be honest. Because your disadvantage is when the patient doesn't tell you the truth and doesn't tell you how they really feel. So I want you to recognize that as they feel more comfortable with you, they'll be honest with you. Now, some of you already know, yeah, I know they will, because patients tell me more than I need to know. And yep, that happens from time to time. But again, I'm willing to take the risk that I might learn things that I don't need to know, because the more comfortable the patient is with me, the more likely they'll want to schedule an appointment with me. So personal connections are usually the best. You've shared names with one another. The next thing I would ask is, who can you thank for telling us or telling you about us? More than likely, they're going to say, hey, I got your name off the internet. I saw your website, or perhaps another friend had told them about the office. And so you can comment then, hey, that's great that you saw us on the internet and you saw our website. You know, a lot of patients find us that way, so I'm glad you did too. Or if it was from another individual, you can say, well, I'm glad that, Mrs. Jones told you about us. She's just one of our favorite patients, and so I'm so glad that she told you about us. Next time I see her, I'll be sure to thank her. What you're doing here is you're developing a rapport by asking questions, and you're also developing a rapport because you're connecting with them. So I want you to remember that it's not comfortable for someone to talk to an individual when they don't know who you are. And so when they know your name, when you've acknowledged how they found out about you, you're now connecting. I think acknowledging the referral source reassures the patient that they've made the right choice, and it encourages them to want to answer your questions. It really does. So the first step is indicating, we're glad that you called. The second step is we've got to find out, why did you really call? I know that a lot of times we assume it's what they say. In reality, it probably isn't. For instance, for the sake of today's webinar, this patient called and said, do you take insurance? And so we're assuming, oh my God, we're in trouble because we don't take insurance, and now we're in trouble. This isn't going to be good. And see, we don't want to have that mindset. The mindset is, I think you want to come to us. You just didn't know what to ask me, because that's a silly question to start off by, what insurance do you take? How personal do you want to get? My point here is that don't assume it's what they say, and this is where it takes a lot of practice, because we're kind of trained as dental professionals to give the answers. And we're really proud of the fact that we have the answers. But I want you to see that if we answer this question too quickly, or if we don't answer it the right way, we're going to turn off the patient, and they're going to say, well, okay, thanks. I was looking for somebody on our plan. Bye. And that's when we're left at the other end of the line feeling like, well, you would have liked us, but you'll never know now. So we want to make sure that we don't get ourselves into a problem here by assuming it's what they say. So what you have to do is resist the urge to answer their questions. Take it easy. You see, you want to gain control of the conversation by asking questions yourself. And when it comes to that insurance question, this is more important than almost anything else because you guys already know insurance is complicated. And insurance doesn't cover the things that the insurance companies would lead you to believe that they cover. And so I want you to see that that's why this is so important for people to feel like, well, you're really nice and you've been really informative. And nobody's ever answered my question this way that I could understand. You know what? I can work with you. You see how you're trying to create that kind of feeling within the patient. Because I believe this person wants to schedule a call in or an appointment in our office. That's why they called. If they didn't want to have an appointment, they would not have called. They want to be here, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that that happens. And I'm going to do it without persuasion and without manipulation. I'm just going to tell them the truth. And if they see that I'm a flexible, reasonable person, then they're going to feel like, you know what, I can come to your office. So the person calls, they say, you know, do you take my insurance or whatever that question is? You say, thanks for calling. You know, since you brought up that question, it sounds like you've never been to our office before. And I know they're probably going to say, no, I've not ever been there before because I'm just looking for somebody on our plan. Well, welcome to our office. We're really glad that you called. You see how immediately you're taking control of the conversation. Now, who can we thank? You see, I want to make sure to do this correctly so that you'll get the right appointment and the proper amount of time. Tell me some information. And so, you know, you're sort of creating an outline for yourself because I want you to see that you can do this the same way every single time. It's also important because the questions that they ask us usually don't fall into any logical order or create any kind of a coherent conversation. I want you to see that the questions that you ask are going to demonstrate to the patient that they're going to the place where they want to be. It also lets them talk. And when they talk, they're going to feel more relaxed with you. Can you see where I'm going? The more relaxed they feel with you, the more that they're going to work through the details of how to get their insurance to pay for all this. So the third step is you expressing to them that I understand what you need. See, earlier you had said, let me ask a few more questions or tell me a few things that are going on. At this point, what I would do is ask the patient, you know, you mentioned that you're looking for a dentist and I want to talk to you about your insurance. However, I'm curious, is there something going on that the doctor would need to know about before you get here? You see, we have to hear them out. We have to find out what is the reason for coming to the dentist, because we want to be able to demonstrate to them that we're making decisions based on their input. So you can tell them, based on what you have told me, or you know, tell me if I got this right, and so you just paraphrase what they told you. It sounds to me that what would be best for you is this. And so if you tell it to them in this way, they're going to sense that you really understand. You see, if they said, hey, I'd like to make an appointment, and you said, great, we just need to get you in here for an exam and x-rays, well, you notice how you just made a decision about what they need before they told you anything. And so they immediately start to become resistant because they're wondering, why do I need x-rays? What do I need an exam for? How much is this going to cost me? Because you made a decision about what they needed before they felt you understood what they needed. They became resistant. And I hear this over and over and over again. It's very important just to let them talk. You see, when you convey that you understood the patient's concern, it tells them that you've made a decision with their input. Patients are stubborn today, and they're cynical, they're suspicious, they're distrustful, sound like anybody you know? Oh yeah, and they think they know more than you. So your solution is only going to make sense to the patient when they sense that you understand. And it gets even trickier when it comes to insurance, because if they don't think you understand their concern or their problem, no solution, nothing you say to them will ever make any kind of sense. The fourth step is to get excited. All too often, I'll listen to a phone call and I'll feel like, did somebody just step on your toe? We're asking these questions in rapid fire succession. It sounds like an interrogation, you know, because of the way that we're asking the questions and all of that. So people like to see some excitement. It's important for you to encourage the patient and reassure them. Encourage them that taking care of themselves and coming to our office was a good decision, and reassure them that coming to us will solve their needs. So they need that encouragement. They need that reinsurance. The best way for you to demonstrate that is to kind of be excited. And I'm not talking about a person who's jumping up and down with pom-poms, you know, oh, this is going to be so wonderful, we can't wait to see you. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just some simple reassurance and simple statements, and I hear a lot of practices who are doing this. They just say, hey, the doctor is really good at this type of thing, or we've got a lot of advanced training in this area. So it's important for you to know what the doctor does and does well in your practice. What are you good at? Are you good at treating children? Are you good at cleaning teeth? Are you good at veneers or implants? Are you good at coordinating treatment amongst other specialists? Make a list of all the things that you do and that you do well. Our doctor is very gentle. I know it's something that people say all the time, but he really is. These are the things that patients actually want to hear from you. And of course, I want you to make the list because I want you to convey it to the patient your way so that you can sound sincere and you can interject it where you feel like it's appropriate. I think patients like to hear things such as, you know, you called the right place, or you're going to love our doctor. Another phrase that I really enjoy is patients tell us they really like. You know, people like to know what other people think. You probably notice this because reviews are so popular on the internet today. None of us wants to get caught doing something that nobody else has done before. And so when we say, hey, patients really tell us, or what our patients tell us they like most, or other patients in the same situation, you know, when we put it in the context of what other folks have done, it just lets them know, okay, I'm not the first. Let them know the doctor does a great job with veneers or with implants or with gum surgery, whatever it is. We need patients to feel like they can work with us because we can't be all things to all patients. And so I may sound like a broken record here, but it's important. If we're going to have them feel good about going through the details of what their insurance is going to cover or not cover, then we need them to be flexible. And so they're only going to do that if they feel good. And so these steps help them to realize on their own that I can work with these people. So keep it simple. I would want you to be prepared to know what you want to say. These are the kind of things that help patients put other things on the side because when they like what they hear and they like how it was said and it makes them feel good, then often they will put on the side that, well, even though you're not a provider, I think I can still work with you, and I'll show you how that can happen. I think you may have noticed, or you might be wondering, you know, Larry hasn't gone over a lot of details because we don't know their policy number or, you know, anything like that. And you're right. Save all these boring details until the end. I want to use the beginning of this phone call, excuse me, to demonstrate to the patient that you can like me, you know, that we can work together. So if you tell patients things or ask them for questions and they don't seem to know the answers, I mean, I just jumbled that, If you ask them things and they don't seem to understand why you're asking them those things, then they get resistant and they don't give a lot of significance to their answers. Besides, if I haven't decided whether I like you or not, or whether I'm going to even come to your office, why would I want to go through all these details? It's just too boring. You see, once I've made that decision, I'll give you all the information that you want. So save all the boring details, the name, rank, serial number type stuff. Save that all to the end of the phone call. So I'm really asking you to put an outline together. 5 simple steps. Welcome. Who can we thank for telling you about us? Let me get a little bit more information. Then you want to prepare the patient for their appointment. You see, you want to find out, tell me what's going on so that I know how to schedule this appointment appropriately for you. They'll tell you what's going on. Based on what you've told me, the best thing would be for you to, possibly have an exam with the doctor or come in and see our hygienist, whatever it is that you decide. Let me explain a little bit more about what will happen when you get here. And I think this is important because I think folks who are looking for good care and want to be well cared for will recognize if they're going to get it or not by how you conduct your exam. And I think your patient needs to be prepared. You need to explain, when you get to our office, this is what will happen. We're going to reserve, an hour for you to be here, and during that time, we are going to review the medications that you're taking. We're going to take your blood pressure. We're going to screen for oral cancer in your mouth. We are also going to look for gum disease. We'll evaluate the condition of the dentistry that's already in your mouth, as well as check your teeth to make sure that they're not broken or cracked or creating problems. You see, we do all this, Ms. Jones, because if the doctor sees something that he knows is going to create a problem for you down the road, he's going to want to stop and talk to you about it. And that way you can let us know what you'd like to do. You see, when we know what you'd like to do, then I can review the fees with you and let you know how you'll be reimbursed by your insurance company. Ms. Jones, how does that sound? So again, I'm making a statement. I'm also following up with a question to engage the patient in the conversation with me. But I really do believe that many, many people really decide if they want to come to your office or not by how well the exam is going to be organized. And I think it's a way of creating curiosity, because when they know what you're going to do, they're curious about how it will all pan out. I mean, I don't know many people who don't want to know what their blood pressure is, or who don't want to know if they're suffering from oral cancer. I think people, they don't want to guess about whether their teeth are cracked or broken. They want to know. So when you let them know what will happen, it does create a lot of curiosity. Then the last thing is to allow the patient time to inquire and ask them if they have any other questions about the office. If this is all done correctly, most of your patients will probably tell you that you've been very thorough, and that, I had a sense that I'd like your office from what I saw on the internet, and now I know that I will. See, I'm not afraid of what the patient is going to say to me if I ask them for feedback, because if they like what they hear, they're going to go along with it. You see, in the event that they do have questions, then I can talk to them. You've made it safe for them to talk to you about it because you've asked them for their input, and that's very important. And I say that when this is done, it's very, very important in converting patients, because it makes them feel like they're in control of what's going on. And so this is a slower approach. This isn't fast. We don't want to just hurry and get their name and make an appointment. And we certainly don't want to mislead anybody. We want to make sure that they're in control of what they're doing and agree with what's going on. So let's address some of these very specific issues. When you're getting feedback from patients, ask them, how does this sound? What do you think? What other questions about our office can I answer for you? Tell me if you agree or not. Again, getting their input makes them feel better. They like it, and it helps you convert patients because you asked for the input, so they feel more comfortable with you, and it does allow you to ask their questions. So if somebody's looking for a new dentist, and this is a new patient, it starts off very, very easily. Um, Welcome to our practice. You know, we like working with new patients. I'm really glad that you called. Is there somebody that we can thank for telling you about us? Well, let me get a little bit more information because I want to make sure that we schedule the proper amount of time, or that we do this correctly. Let me explain what will go on here, and let me see if you have any other questions. So remember, you want to show empathy for the patient. You don't want to just be going from your outline and actually not listening to what the patient is saying to you. You want to be empathetic. You want to demonstrate, hey, I'm sorry to hear that you've been in pain, or that you've been uncomfortable, or I'm sorry that this tooth has been bothering you. That lets them know, when you're empathetic that way, that you are actually listening to them. So we want them to listen to us, yet we have to do the same. So remember, this isn't just about collecting data. It's about evoking feelings and building a bond with the patient. So reflect their feelings is just the best way to do it. So you're looking for a new dentist. You've got insurance. I like when you start with your insurance company works with us as a non-participating provider. Many of our patients who have the same plan come to our office, so we know there's an out-of-network benefit. They really like us, and I think you will too. Sounds like you haven't been here before. So that way they'll go, no, I haven't. I'm looking for somebody on this plan. But you get my point now. You can kind of go through your outline, and that's what's really important here. So let's talk about some specific ways of responding. Now, my intention of showing this to you is not so that you'll have a script to read. What I want you to see is a theme here of how you can talk to the patient and things that you can say that I think will reassure them that you're the right person. My intention here is not to get into a long-winded conversation with the patient about all the pros and cons of insurance and things like that. But I do know when you talk to these patients, they often have questions, and I want you to have some kind of a response that you can make your own. I also know that when they do get into the office and you find out that they're going to need treatment, it's disappointing because insurance doesn't cover most of the things that people need or want. And even if it does cover, there's a limit. Most patients, you guys already know, only have a limit of about $1,000, so it's tough. So you're going to have to talk to them about this, and I want you to have some things to say. So here's one that I like. Doctors decided not to participate in any insurance plan because they place too many restrictions and limitations on the type of care our patients think they should receive. Our patients love it that the doctor will not start any treatment until he has the opportunity to talk to you about it. This way he can answer your questions and you can let us know where you want to start. Then I can review the fees and give you an idea of what to expect from your insurance company. I hope what you're seeing just in these first couple of phrases that I'm just trying to be plain and simple so it's easy for patients to understand. I'm avoiding using words like, well, it's just an estimate, because people don't seem to understand that. In today's world, an estimate is a quote. And so they think when the estimate doesn't come in with what you quoted, you're in trouble. But you do want to have the opportunity to sit down with them. Let's talk about how your insurance company works with us. Another one I like is, hey, we don't participate because insurance plans want our doctor to increase the number of patients he sees each day. And he believes this will take away from the personal attention we're able to give our patients. It's the part of our practice that patients tell us they come here for. We don't want that to change. Another one of my favorites is, yes, this would be considered out of network. You guys have heard me say this one. The other patients with your plan tell us there's not much of a difference, and they say our office is worth it. We think you'll feel the same way everyone else does if you come in to meet us. We'll still file your claim, and the insurance company will send you a check to your house. Patients really like this convenience. Again, what I'm trying to do here is reassure them that it would be okay to be able to work with us. Hey, in order for us to continue filing insurance for our patients, we'd have to charge for providing the service or raise fees. Insurance companies only communicate changes to policyholders. We never find out about them until it's too late. This creates so much confusion and double work that patients tell us it would be easier to file claims on their own. Now, of course, I'm just giving you the theme. You make it your own. I know as a practice management consultant, even for offices that I work with who don't participate in every type of plan that's out there, we'll still take their insurance. If the state or the carrier will still send us the check, then we'll even accept assignment. I don't see where that's a problem. But I think that's up to you and the doctor who owns the practice on how they want to do it. But I find if they'll send you the check, then accepting assignment from the insurance carrier I think is okay. And I think it's okay to go ahead and file the claim even though you're not participating with that provider. I think it's still okay for you to go ahead and file the claim for the patient. It just makes it easier, and it really builds a lot of value for what you're doing. I like this one. Hey, this doesn't mean you can't come to our office. You can be a patient and even continue to use your dental plan to help cover the cost of your care. To keep the doctor from having to raise fees, we had to cut down on the amount of paperwork that is required by your insurance company. We had to hire someone just to keep up with the amount of paperwork that's required. Again, I'm trying to appeal to them because even though patients don't like to admit it, they know working with insurance companies is hard. They don't want to do it. That's why they want you to do it. And we don't want to rub it in their face, but we do want to appeal to their emotion that it's just so confusing with the limitations and the changes and the restrictions and the paperwork. Oh my gosh, we'd have to raise fees or charge people, and that would create another layer of complication, and our patients just tell us it would be easier to do it themselves. Another one is billing the insurance company, and each patient is duplicate work. It's time-consuming and very, very costly to the practice. The doctor does not want to have to cut corners or raise fees to cover this expense. I hope you can also see, as I'm kind of even reading my own words here, I still try to make it my own because it's very difficult just to read from a script. We can understand how the rules your insurance plan has put in place may not work for you. They make it difficult for patients. So you'll go to their dentist, you see, and those are the ones who will provide treatment at a discount. We're disappointed too. Many insurance plans have changed and become more complicated with many restrictions on care and service. I'm sure they didn't intend to mislead you. Yuck, yuck, yuck. I do know that insurance paperwork or brochures is very complicated. They do lead people to believe that things are going to be covered at 100%. I don't want to get into a big argument with the patient because we know that that's not always true. What I want to convey to the patient is that what they have told you is complicated, and working together, we're going to sort it out. And we're not going to get started until we know exactly what's going on, so that way you can have a very reasonable expectation as to what you're going to get from them. So our patients have told us it's tough on them when we're caught in the middle because we have no control over what's covered or how much they'll pay. Again, I just want to appeal to them that, hey, it's not just you that's having a hard time. We're having a hard time too. Most often, insurance only covers basic treatment at the minimum standard. Our patients tell us they want something better, and we're glad that we can provide it for them. Insurance is great for healthy people and not so great for those who have your type of problem. Again, just little phrases that you might be able to say to them. The difficulty with insurance is that the benefit is based on what they'd like to pay, not based on what you'd like to solve your problem. I'm sorry, here. The difficulty with insurance is that the benefit is based on what they would like to pay, not based on what is needed to solve your problem. I think you can also see that even some of these phrases are not appropriate at certain times. After the patient is willing to work with you, then you can kind of sit down and help them get on your side. So I like when things are done this way and in this order because the results are good and it's easier for you and it's certainly easier for the patient. But the other thing that I like about it is that it allows you to treat every single patient exactly the same way. I think that that's important because I don't want you to feel like you have to be some kind of a psychiatrist to talk to a patient. Everybody gets treated the same, because I know if you're trying to evaluate, oh, is this patient above the line, below the line? Is this an A patient, a D patient? Is this a shopper? You see, it's going to come out in your tone of voice. And as soon as it starts coming out in your tone of voice, I don't really care what you say to the patient, because they're going to care what you just said, because they're going to pay more attention to how it was said than what you have said. So everybody just gets the same opportunity to learn about our practice. They're given the same opportunity to like us. And just like every other patient, we will always sit down and review what you can reasonably expect to get from your insurance coverage. So what questions can I answer for all of you?
Hey, Larry, I had a couple come in. I'll just read them off for you. One person had said, what are some ways you can practice your customer service personality that you spoke about towards the beginning of the call?
This is going to sound corny, but I take it from a lot of speech therapists, and from, I've never studied acting, but I've heard about this, is they actually record themselves, and they talk in front of a mirror. They put a mirror in front of them, so that way they can actually see their facial expressions, and they can hear their tone of voice if they record them. Trust me, I don't like listening to myself, and when I have, I learned a lot about how I come across.
Great. Another question we had was, is there any specific pitfalls you should avoid when you're talking to a client about insurance? Is there anything that tends to be taboo when you get in these conversations, especially on the first call?
Yep, there is, because you don't want to deflate their balloon. I have various insurance coverage, for health insurance, home insurance, car insurance, and it's a big downer for me when I find out that they really don't cover what they led me to believe that they did. So you don't want to tell them you have horrible coverage or, oh, this coverage is bad. You want to say to them, hey, this is pretty good, because they're going to help you out. If they complain, well, why don't they cover this? Say, that's a good question, because we work with other insurance carriers that will cover this. You ought to talk to your personnel director and see why they chose this plan, or perhaps they're not aware. So my point here is that you really don't want to make them feel bad about the plan that somebody else chose for them, or worse, the plan that they chose for themselves because they thought it was going to be good. So you don't want to say, well, they lied, or those crooks, or this plan is horrible. Just say, hey, it's frustrating. Let's work on it together. The thing I would add to it is that you never want to start a conversation by saying, no, we don't participate. You'll have to pay us because we're out of network. That surely is going to get them to hang up the phone.
Absolutely. And then the last question I had is, our practice handles a couple types of insurance and not others. Is there any specific advice you can give for a practice that handles some insurance and not others?
Well, if the person names the plan that you're not participating with, and that's the situation that I'm most comfortable with, or the one that I'm more familiar with, is what I would convey to that patient is that you know that there's an out-of-network benefit. Conveying to them that there's other patients here on that same plan, because more than likely, unless they're with some obscure plan that no one's ever heard of before, today there's been so much consolidation, more than likely they're on a plan that other patients in your practice actually have. And so really with honesty and integrity, you can say, well, you know what, I have other patients here who have that plan. We know there's an out-of-network benefit, and we'll be able to talk to you about what you're going to get. I know often when you mention the out-of-network, patients generally respond with, but wait, if it's out-of-network, it's going to be more money. And the point here is you want to be able to say, the patients who still come here, see what I'm relying on? It's what other patients are doing. The other patients who come here, they have told us that it is slightly more. Not much, but it is slightly more, and they think we're worth it. You know, a lot of times patients come here from other offices letting us know that they're disappointed in the care that they had gotten from their other practice. And gosh, when we look in their mouth to see the quality of the materials that were used, we knew the doctor did as best he could. But you know what, Ms. Jones? Right now, we don't really have to worry about this, or I don't want you to have to worry about it, because we're not going to get started. We're not going to do anything until the doctor has had a chance to look at you and answer your questions. That way, you'll tell us where you want to get started. And when we know that, I can review, that'll give me the opportunity to see how your insurance will cover this, and we can have a conversation about this. That's the way that I would go about handling that kind of question. Because like I said before, you may participate with insurance, but you probably don't participate with every plan that's out there. But it doesn't mean that they can't come here.
Great, great. Well, that is perfect timing. That brings us right up to 3 o'clock. So what I'll do is at this point we'll bring the call to a conclusion. Larry, I know the information you provided is going to be really helpful to the people on the phone and the people that will listen to the webinar after the fact. We'll be emailing this webinar out to everybody this week, so you will have a copy of it. We can also get some of the sample questions or some of the sample answers that Larry shared with us sent out to you. If you would like them, just send me an email requesting them. And if you have any questions for me or for Larry, just feel free to email either of us. If you'd like to contact Larry directly, I know some of you already work with him. Just please feel free to send me an email and I'll get you in contact with him. So thank you so much for your time, Larry, and thank you everybody for joining us, and good luck on the phone and answering the insurance questions.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Great. Thanks.